episode contains graphic descriptions of criminal activity and discussions around sexual abuse and sexual assault. Listeners' discretion is advised for those under the age of 18 and for people who may find the details as disturbing. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Krime KE podcast. My good name is Ajuma and I am a human rights journalist from Kenya. This week we get into the murder of baby Tamara Blessing Kabura, which happened in May of 2025. Now this is the story of a very young life taken in a very brutal manner in the hands of someone whom she trusted. To begin this story, let me take you to the evening of Saturday, May 24th, 2025, which was for the most part a normal day for baby Tamara's family. At around 4 p.m., 7-year-old Tamara is sent by her grandmother to bring her some bags to the open-air market in Nyeri, where she worked as a trader alongside Tamara's mother. Now, Tamara had grown up in Nyeri and she had been to that market a lot of times as she was growing up, so no one was worried about her getting lost or anything. Now, she dropped the bags that she had been sent to her grandmother's stall and she immediately started playing just in the same market. Again, this was not unusual for Tamara because she had grown up coming to the market, playing with her friends, and most of the people who worked at the market even knew her. They had seen her growing up because her mother basically raised her while working there. So they'd seen her growing up and playing there until she became 7 years old. Now, at around 5 to 6 p.m., Tamara was seen around the market and a nearby police station playing with other kids, which again was very typical of her. Tamara's mother said that they started to notice that she had disappeared at around 6:30 p.m. Again, at first she was not overly worried because she knew that Tamara was generally a careful kid. Well, at least careful enough to walk herself home from school every day without incident. And the one thing that she says that she had taught Tamara was the concept of stranger danger. In one interview, she said that Tamara would never ever follow a stranger. Now, it gets to 7 p.m., there are no signs of Tamara at the market. 8 p.m., still no sign of Tamara. It's like she just vanished into thin air. So they filed a police report and started searching for her. They searched for her across the market in the town, and according to her mother, they searched for Tamara until around 2 a.m. that night with no sign of her daughter. The search went on until the next day on Sunday, with a lot of people who worked with baby Tamara's mother and grandmother in the market helping. But again, there was no sign of baby Tamara. The family did several interviews at the time, with Tamara's mother saying that it was very unusual that her daughter would trust a stranger. So to her, it was likely that whoever took Tamara was someone that she knew and even trusted. Now, this theory was proven right when one woman who was at the market on the Saturday that she disappeared came forward saying that she remembered seeing Tamara that evening hand in hand with a man identified as Nicholas Julius Masharia. Now, 39-year-old Masharia worked in the market as those people we refer to as Beba Beba. He would carry stuff for people in the market. And he had worked together with Tamara's family for a long time at the market. So they were very close and they even considered him a family friend. So it actually would make sense that Tamara would trust him enough to leave the market with him. But again, Masharia had been helping the family to search for Tamara the whole time. And in one interview, Tamara's mother even says that by 7 p.m. on that Saturday that Tamara disappeared, Masharia had already asked her twice about her daughter's whereabouts. Now, when the woman came forward with the information about seeing Mashaya with the child, the police started tracing his movements that Saturday. That led them to the Jada building near the market in the Grogan area of Nyeri town, which had 4 CCTV cameras mounted and working on that Saturday. One camera, which was positioned along the path leading to Kiawara slums, where Mashare lived, gave the detectives bombshell evidence in this missing person case. Now, the footage showed Tamara and Masharia walking hand in hand at exactly 6:24 p.m. on that Saturday, heading towards the slums. In the footage, Masharia was wearing a red t-shirt and blue trousers, and he was holding Tamara's right hand and a blue shopping bag in his other hand. Tamara was wearing a brown sweater, maroon trousers, and white sandals, and her demeanor was very comfortable and trusting towards Masharia. Now, according to the witnesses who saw them together that Saturday, Tamara was holding a sweet in her left hand, which they believe that Masharia used to lure her away. Now, this CCTV footage was the last known sighting of Tamara alive. So Masharia was taken into custody because he was the last person seen with Tamara. 2 days after Tamara went missing on Monday, May 26th of 2025, the residents of Nyeri were alerted to Tamara's location by an anonymous tip-off. A group of residents discovered Tamara's body stuffed in a gunny bag, buried in a shallow grave inside Masharia's wooden house in the slums, and baby Tamara was actually buried under Masharia's bed. The angry residents exhumed Tamara's body and carried her to the police station where Masharia was being held, awaiting his arraignment. They confronted the police, demanding that they release Masharia to mob justice because they felt hurt by Tamara's brutal murder, and understandably so. Masharia was formally arraigned before Senior Principal Magistrate Faith Munyi at the Nyeri Law Courts on Tuesday, May 27th of 2025, and the magistrate ordered that police detain him for 14 more days to allow them to complete their investigations. On Friday, May 30th of 2025, baby Tamara's postmortem was conducted at the Nyeri Referral Hospital mortuary. Her family gathered to mourn her and actually find out what happened on that day. The autopsy report showed that baby Tamara was raped before she was murdered. Her cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation. The amount of pain that this child suffered in her last moment is unimaginable. Now, Mashayo underwent a mental assessment to determine if he was mentally fit to take a plea and even stand trial in this case. He was facing 2 counts of murder, contrary to sections 203 and 204 of the Penal Code, and 1 count of defilement of a minor. The consultant psychiatrist at the Muranga Level 5 hospital confirmed that Mashaya was mentally fit to stand trial and take a plea. So on June 12th of 2025, he was arraigned again, this time before the Nyeri High Court in the presence of Justice Kizito Magare. After he had been read his charges, he actually didn't fight them. He pleaded guilty to everything. The judge said that the court could not accept the plea, so he was given 46 days for reflection. Judge Magare said that Mashari was basically pleading guilty to a capital offense on the first plea taking, and he needed to understand that he was setting himself up for a death penalty. So the court said that he should stay in remand for 46 days and reflect on whether he would still want to keep the guilty plea, which he actually did. He retook the plea on July 29th of 2025, and he chose to again plead guilty. Now, before we get further into the trial, let me tell you about baby Tamara. She was 7 years old at the time of her death, and she was a pupil at Judah Academy in Nyeri Town. According to her father, her biggest dream at her age was to grow up to become a doctor, and that dream was snatched away by someone whom she trusted. Her school held a memorial service in her honor, and her teachers and her fellow pupils eulogized Tamara as someone who brought a lot of joy in their lives. Now, in his testimony, Macharia blamed the devil for leading him to murder Tamara. He actually told the court that he was powerless and influenced by Satan into murdering this innocent girl. On February 19th of this year, the Nyeri High Court under Justice Magare sentenced Macharia to death. On the day of the sentencing, the courtroom was filled with Nyeri residents who had been very vocal in ensuring that baby Tamara got justice, and actually there was a sense of relief when the judge read the sentence. Now, the judge dismissed Macharia's testimony about the devil because it was clearly an excuse and a very bad one at that. The judge said that the court was unable to discern any role played by the devil in the crime, and the court does not recognize blame on supernatural powers, so it was all his fault. Justice Magare said that the penalty fit the crime because the crime was horrific in nature. It was premeditated, meticulously planned, and carried out with extreme cruelty. He said that Macharia abused baby Tamara's trust towards him and took that opportunity to commit a very heinous crime. I remember the reading of the judgment went viral on social media because after the judge sentenced him to death, he broke his pen, which is symbolic. Now, according to a report by Kenya Insights, judges break their pens after issuing a death sentence as a symbolic gesture to signify the gravity, finality, and the solemnity of the decision. Now, the practice of breaking a pen or quill after pronouncing a death sentence dates back to the Mughal Empire in India from 1526 up until the 18th century, where the emperor or his officials would break the quill used to sign a death decree. This act symbolized that the instrument had been consecrated to a singular, irreversible act, the extinguishing of life, and it could not be used again for ordinary purposes. That tradition was later adopted by the British judges in colonial India, and it continued in some jurisdictions after independence. Now, this is not a legal requirement, it is just a symbolic thing that was done, adopted, and passed down over the years. Anyway, baby Tamara's family say that the verdict provides a sense of closure for them, even though the loss of their daughter cannot be repaired. Tamara's father spoke to the press after the verdict, and he said that the verdict had provided them with a sense of accountability. He said that, quote, at least we can now move on to the next step of healing, and it will be easier knowing that our child got the justice that she deserved. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this episode. You can support Krime KE podcast by sharing this episode with your friends so that we can get a larger community to listen to these cases. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at krime.ke, and you can find me on Facebook at Ajuma Millicent for updates on the cases covered on the podcast. I have tagged the podcast contact information and social media pages in the show notes of this episode so that it is easier for you to reach out if you have any feedback on this episode or the podcast in general. We also have a WhatsApp number, which I have put in the show notes of this episode. You can send in voice notes, suggest cases, and give feedback. Don't forget to give the podcast a 5-star rating on Spotify and catch the next episode of Krime KE podcast on Thursday next week on the same platform that you're listening from right now. But until then, stay safe and remember, it is crime with a K.